Okay, here we are.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. All right, let me just make sure. Looks like we're good to go. So cool. Let's just get this started. All right, I can't actually tell how many people are in here yet. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. We're just trying to. It's our first one, to be completely honest. So just getting it all figured out. But yeah, so my name is Brian. I'm one of the co-founders of Flow Candy. This is Will. He's the other co-founder of Flow Candy. And today we're going to be going through Campaign Strategy School. So the goal here today is, how do we help you all send better emails going into 2024? We have a few topics that I think will be great to cover as we, that we've seen a lot of people already talking about as they go into 2024. But if there's any questions you have or anything like that, of course, you can post comments, send us a message or something like that, and we can incorporate it in. We have some time at the end that we could do that. But yeah, the goal today will be to go through some of the strategies that we use. We work with a bunch of different brands. We send thousands of campaigns all the time. And so, this is the stuff that we've seen work, and this is how we run a lot of our own brands. So yeah, anything you want to add there, Will?
Yeah, super excited to jump into it. I think this is like the perfect time of year to sort of sit back and reflect on like 2023 and really sort of jumpstart your campaigns in 2024. So excited to dive in and just share all the knowledge and tools we've sort of accumulated over the years.
Totally. All right. Well, cool. So, the first thing, I think the biggest question everyone has as you go into the new year is, I just want campaigns to perform better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that of, hey, we maybe didn't hit our goals this year of campaign revenue or engagement rates or things like that. And so, I think that's probably the most burning question is, how do we improve that? What do we do? What can we do to actually make that possible?
Right. So the first thing I would do is just, go back and look at what you did in 2023, or in what were the results, and what was the biggest sin, if it's revenue, like what sin got the biggest amount of revenue, what emails or types of emails that you sent got the highest click-through rate, what segments got the highest click-through rate and open rates, just sort of auditing what you did in 2023 and just sort of letting that be the initial guide on what to do in 2024. So that's normally where I start. I'll give you an example. A lot of our clients are like, hey, I want to, do better than last year's Black Friday. And so it's like, okay, well, let's go look at what you did last year on Black Friday and how we can build upon that.
No, I think that's a great point. Where were you last year, and what are the actual metrics you're trying to beat this year? How can you actually make moves towards making whatever you're doing now or you've done in the past just 1% better or a little bit better? Or how can you double down on what actually worked last year and what could work next year? That's great. So anything else you want to go with on that?
Well, I guess, so we talk about, okay, let's say now you have audited, you've done that. So what do you do next? And I think that, where I normally start is I look out big picture. Okay, like we know we did in 2023. We're going to double down on that in 2024. And we're also going to do, here's what we're also going to do next. And I think that I zoom out the whole year and I'm sort of looking at like, okay, what are my big holidays? What are my big events, seasonal events, product launches, collection launches, or just really what are like the key things I have circled on my calendar, or our brand has circled on our calendar, where we could sort of optimize or enhance our campaigns around this year.
Yeah, I think another big one to add on that as well is like, not just holidays, but what selling seasons are generally just important to your brand as well. Because
Yeah.
that can be different for different types of brands. Everyone has kind of the big holidays, whether it's, Black Friday and the holiday and, Christmas and everything that we just passed just now. But for some others, if there's a lot of seasonality in your business, there's another season in there that's probably super important to you. If you're a brand that really is summer is the important time, you probably need to do a lot of prep before that summertime and really plan for, hey, we need to lead up to this product can be used over summer. So we want to, whether it's sunscreen or beach chairs or something like that, you're gearing up for beach season, and kind of making sure that that's planned. What is your actual selling season, whether it's an actual holiday or like kind of that overarching seasonality for your product.
Yeah. And if you don't know, I mean, a lot of people might listening probably know, but if you don't know, like, a great place to start is just go look at your data. What is your seasonality been like over the past couple of years? If you're a newer brand, you could probably search some of the biggest people in your industry. You could look at their, I mean, let's say you're in the outdoor industry. I don't know if like REI is a public company, but you could go look at like their revenue. So I mean, there's different ways to find it and sort of make assumptions around it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. Unfortunately, you can't go get all of REI's emails. They took all their stuff off of Mild. I'd love to know what they're doing. You can see what their financials are maybe, but you can't see what their emails are.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what are some tactics? We've talked about building towards these selling seasons, but what are some tactics to actually build towards that selling season? What can you do to make the most out of that?
Yeah, I think that we haven't really talked about segmentation yet, and I think that's sort of the chicken and the egg here. It's like that's another thing I think you got to think about. Like, okay, it's like how do we build upon our calendar, but also how do we like build up our segmentation? A lot of different strategies there. I don't know if there's a certain place you want to zero in on.
Well, I think it's, excuse me, it's important, I think, to start with, all right, if we're targeting a certain selling season, and the products within that season or whatever, how would you want to segment to approach that? What is kind of the goal for that? Are we, it might be one tactic I could think of would be like a warm up, so
Yeah.
with that case, who are we segmenting out and why would you want to warm up for, a big sale essentially?
Yeah, so warm ups are great. I think a lot of, especially as you get big, you're going to have. Well, we're just assuming that a lot of the bigger brands probably send to what's called an engaged audience. So that is somebody who's opened or clicked or started checkout maybe or placed an order in the last, let's just say 90 days, but it could be another amount of time. But typically, a lot of the bigger brands are sending to some sort of level audience that's engaged. The reality, though, is as you scale or if you've reached scale, you will have people that at one time were either customers or either lapsed customers, lapsed repeat customers, lapsed VIPs, or even highly once was previously highly engaged prospects. You'll have a lot of those people just sitting on your list that are sort of dormant. They're not engaged, and you could probably put some time into warming those people up, especially if around a key promotional event like Black Friday, like a new product launch, like we're talking about the outdoor industry, like the spring sale that's coming up here probably in February or March. So I think that's what you would do. And just like really tactically speaking, you got to build those segments. And then you got to send campaigns to sort of warm them up. And what I would do there, like a warm up, you're just trying to get them to open and click. You're not necessarily trying to get them to order. I mean, if they order, that's great, but you're just trying to get them to open or click to increase that engaged audience size, that engaged segment when you do your big promo here in the spring. And I like to send a lot of text-based emails during these warm-ups, like not very promotional, not a lot of graphics, not a lot of links, just text-based emails to get them to land in the inbox, to get people to open and click and to become engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a really good point as well. It's like, we're not looking for the conversion in a warm up.
Yeah.
And so maybe with the text-based ones, you might be looking for something like a survey interaction or something like that, where we're trying to nurture them on a different path. And, we'll talk about nurturing a little bit more once we get further into that. That's kind of the next topic we're going to go into in a bit here. But I think it's really important to note that, we want to get people in the rhythm of opening an email from your brand at this point. So that way they're ready when the sale comes around or when the event comes around that you're looking to drive more people to. They're just in that habit of opening an email you send to because they look at you as providing value. There's something else that you're providing value in there. And we'll talk about other ways to do that a little bit later here in the in this chat. But I think that's a really good point. And one thing I'll just jump off of what you were saying, like let's continue using the outdoor industry as an example. You kind of mentioned, spring sale, right? As winter comes to a close, the sports that people are doing shift. So if you're an outdoor brand, you move from selling winter and ski gear or something like that into selling hiking boots and shorts and the hiking poles and backpacking gear and things like that, because you're going into a new season. And so another way you can think about segmentation is based on the past behaviors of all of your customers that have already purchased with you. So if you have a bunch of SKUs, if you have a bunch of different categories that you're selling into, you're able to kind of zero in on what do people do? What are they actually interested in if they're an outdoor brand? So they've bought hiking boots before, they've bought a sleeping pad from you before. That probably tells you that they are a camper / hiker / backpacker, right? So now all of a sudden we kind of know ways to engage with just that audience around something that's important to them. And so that can be another way to kind of start this warm up or start to use something outside of just, just like the holiday or whatever, to actually engage with these people and put something in the plan that's going to, move them further down the path of purchase, even if it's not just like a sale event or anything like that.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. You could even like go find people that, bought during a previous sale cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Target them with the segment. I've seen that work in some instances as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So with all of that, walk me through or walk all of us through a little bit of like how to actually organize all of this, and how to actually get some of this down on paper, because that's really the most important part, is the actual plan, right? We recommend getting as far ahead as possible, even like a quarter ahead planned. So what are some tips you have for actually doing that?
Yeah, so I think you got to have a campaign calendar. There's a couple different ways we do it. I'm happy to share. I think we're going to share our sort of initial resource on this. See if I can present my screen on it. Share screen. Yeah, so there is we normally create something like this for our clients, where it's like we sort of we already outline out like the whole every single day in 2024, and I preferably would like to get a month ahead on campaigns. If you get a quarter ahead, that's great. I know some brands that even do it a year out. But yeah, you're just sort of putting in, okay, when are we going to send it? Like, is it approved? Yes or no? What is the send date? You could even backtrack this and use it as a reporting tool too, after you send it, to sort of track revenue. Like, what is the target audience? That could be the segment. What is the angle or the theme? What is the overall goal of the email? What are the categories or products or pages we're going to be featuring, and what are the discounts offered? something like this is really good to keep you organized, and it's also really good. It's like easily shareable too, to get all these different stakeholders involved. Because a lot of times this overlaps with other promotional calendars, other departments. Leadership might need to be exposed. Um, but I think if you don't have this already, this is like critical for you to have a successful 2024. You have to get organized. You want to take it to the next level. We run a lot of them in ClickUp, or you could do this in Asana, or I don't know. There's a lot of these with Trello, and we actually have the whole calendar planned out here in progress. The different types, this due date, the send date. We even have like an actual SOP or like a template every time we send a campaign, like who's responsible. So that would be like elevating it to the next level. But if you don't have anything, I would start out with just something like this.
Yeah, that's great. I think that there's, at the end of the day, if you want to, this is probably the biggest thing you can do to improve campaign revenue is just actually get a plan in place for what are our big selling seasons and how are we going to prep to make the most of those selling seasons. Right. So, all right, where along this calendar do we really want to push sales? And then how do we use the time in between that to nurture people and get them ready to actually purchase when those sales seasons come along? And so I think that's huge. And I think it's a really good area to start talking about, nurturing customers. Honestly, it really kind of frustrates me that a lot of people will create content and just talk about like, oh, you got to nurture your customers. You got to nurture your customers. But nobody really talks about like what is nurturing your customers? How do you actually nurture your customers? Because it's hard. And so I think that's let's kind of jump into that. And what are some things that people can do to actually nurture their customers?
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of different things you can do here. I'll stick in like the campaign lane. Okay. I think that, what a lot of brands do is they just send promotional emails all the time, you know? And when I say promotional, I want to get like clear on what that means. That's like something with an offer. Like, hey, but buy one, get one free, or hey, get 15% off to do this, or free shipping for that. Like every brand is, not every brand, but a lot of brands, that is their entire campaign calendar. It's just a bunch of promotional emails. And when it comes to nurturing, like you just can't do that all the time. Like you're nurturing, you're leading the client, you're help educating them, you're teaching them. So you have to understand their customer journey that they're on. They're not trying to buy things from you every day or every week or even every month. So you have to know sort of the customer journey or like the life cycle that your customers are on. And you have to use campaigns to nurture them to the next stage in their life cycle. That's like the 30,000-foot answer there.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, it's really important to start to, like we talk about this a lot. You actually have to be a marketer. Sales are not marketing. Sales are it's low effort marketing. You're not actually thinking about what a customer wants. You're not, like you said, thinking about what stage of the customer journey they're in, what portion of the buying phase they're in. And that's really what marketing actually is. It's understanding why somebody is driven to purchase your product, what the emotional trigger is for them to want what you have, what problem you're trying to solve in their life, and then seeing how that actually plays in day to day with their life in general. Like what are they looking to solve this problem right now? How big of a problem is it? And how does that problem change once it's been solved? Whether it's a replenishable product or it's something that you only need one of. And so the more you can actually engage with, all right, who is my customer and what are they, what do they want? The better campaigns you're going to be able to send. And this is the not easy part. This is the really tough marketing work that you have to do. And then once you know that stuff, it gets even harder because you have to actually start creating something that is interesting to those people. You actually, that's what I come back to when I talk about like nurturing campaigns. And you've heard me go on and on and on about this, is like, how do you actually make something that somebody cares about? And the reality is like, it's not your products most of the time. They don't really care about your products. They don't want to just see another lifestyle shot of somebody wearing, this season's collection or whatever. That's not what is going to keep somebody in engaged with you. That's only going to keep the people engaged that are in a buying mode right now. And that's pretty much what everyone does, is just engages with the people that are in ready to make a purchase, which what's the statistic? I think it's like 3% are like ready to buy right now, of everybody on your list, right? Or of everybody like in the industry. And so that means you're really only creating content for 3% of your list. And so how do you start to talk to more people that aren't thinking about buying right now, just so that you're continuing to build trust and to build value and build reciprocity with them, so that when they do get to that point where they're starting to consider, oh, it's the new season, I need a new XYZ. These are all of the different brands that have made an impression on me over the last 6 months. You're going to be one of the ones that, is more than just sale. It's cheap, it's whatever. You're starting to call out to their values that are the most important to them. And being able to actually say like, hey, this is what's important to you. And it's also important to us. And that's why we align on a deeper level than just like, we make cool products, you should buy it.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part to do. This is the stuff that, when we pull out some of the breakdowns and things like that we do, we focus on a lot of brands that do this really well. Like Liquid Death is one. It's just water at the end of the day. But like everything around what they do is so driven by being something that people can say, yes, I'm a part of that group, or no, I'm not a part of that group. And so you gotta figure out a way to create that content. And that's the thing, is there's no silver bullet for that. There's no easy way to just create, it's not a template. It's not something that you actually have to invest in finding out what people want and then creating that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to get like, to add to what you said and make it like something a little bit more tactical that people can take away with, might be to use, like, let's just use familiar terms like middle of funnel, top of funnel,
Mm-hmm.
And what these brands are doing is, not all brands, but a lot of people are doing, they're doing bottom of funnel promotional stuff, that 3% that you called out is ready to buy on. But there's a whole other percentage in the middle and the top of the funnel where you need to send content to. And some ideas I have, some stuff that I normally tell clients is, okay, like middle of funnel content could be stuff that's about your products that is not promotion, So some angles you could do, and I could share like our angles sort of,
Sure.
our angles guide. We have, I mean, there's a lot of different angles you could use, but there's probably like 10, maybe 15 that we commonly use here at Flow Candy. And we're going to link to all of this after the show, or some point in the show. But so we talked about promotional, that's what everyone's doing, but some middle of content stuff, middle of funnel type stuff could be FAQs. Hey, like here's some frequently asked questions about this product, and you could send that to people, because you could even have people that are bottom of funnel that maybe are not motivated by a discount code. Maybe you're just not answering their questions, or you're not busting the objections that they have. So FAQ stuff, you could do social proof campaigns. I think we have that, where it's like similar to FAQs. You're showing social proof of like other people using this product, because it's not all about just getting a discount code to push people over the finish line on a sale. So I think you could do this middle of funnel stuff. And then we want to talk about some of the top of funnel stuff. You kind of already went over it, Brian, but or some of it like at a high level. But I mean, is there any like tactical types of campaign angles people could send?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's first and foremost, the thing we see the most commonly would be like blog content.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a brand that's already creating blog content and you have some sort of ongoing where you're already doing that for SEO, right? You're already kind of thinking in this vein of, all right, what are questions that people have that are related to what we're doing? And this would be top of funnel. You want to be that resource that answers that question first so that you show up in the search results. This is another way to do that. You continually kind of talk about, hey, this is an insight in our current industry. An example recently would be like the breakdown we did on Huel. They have I think it's called like the Weekly Digest, but their whole thing is like they're making a play on the word digest because it's all about health, right? And like gut and like nutrition. And so it's all about, what's new, talking about trends in the health and wellness space, a keto diet versus how much protein do you actually need and all those kind of questions. And so if you can if you're already creating content like that, whether it's blog or anything, setting that as something that you send on a regular basis is that top of funnel stuff that's going to just, keep people engaged. And hopefully they're interested in that stuff because they're subscribed to your mission or, for your products because of, that flag that you're trying to wave of saying, hey, this is what we stand for. Another example might be like topical things that are going on, kind of follows the trends. But keeping an eye, there's a lot of value in, aggregating or just sourcing, finding links and interesting things that people would like that other people are doing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your content. Mm-hmm. Example would be like Hute Denim does that really well, where they will go and find other people that align with their kind of like sustainability, buy it once, like very like being the absolute best at something. And they just talk about how other people are doing that. And it kind of raises their value as well, because they're presenting someone as, hey, they do this really, really well. They're the best in the world at this. And the reason we're talking about it is because we're trying to be the best in the world at making jeans. Yeah. And so how do you find something that kind of connects those dots? So what's a topical other thing in the world that you want other people to think about your brand? And you can go and collect links and try to put those together and be the source for that. Be someone that they look to get information on that thing that's important to them.
Yeah. Those are all great. Yeah. The Huel, Huey, is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah. Another one I thought I would share is Huckberry. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think they do a great job. So I pulled up one of their emails here. This is like really, not only are they doing, this is like a top of funnel campaign, but they move it to middle of funnel. They're like, you'll see what they do here. So the hero and probably the subject line, what is it? I'm not sure if I have it. Is around JFK's favorite shades. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's, something super top of funnel that like, but then they slowly transition into, okay, here's what the president is using, so it moves in the middle of funnel. And then they're also cross-selling here. So it's more middle of funnel, cross-selling down jackets too, so, this is a great example. They do a very good job of sort of taking top of funnel and moving into like middle of funnel, even into bottom of funnel sometimes. But yeah, it's just like finding something like, okay, let's say you're a sunglass company. Like, what are all the things you could talk about? You saw Huckleberry just talked about this celebrity. You could literally do like, celebrity shades or something like that. And that's just, you highlight a celebrity every week. That might be a little bit cheeky, but I mean, it's like, that's like sort of the thought experiment you need to go through.
Totally. No, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot practically, if we want to get back to the tactical and like really thinking about how do you make this work as a brand that, every single person I talk to that runs email,
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth is an issue.
Yeah.
So it's just like, we're talking about all these different emails and all these different things to send and whatnot. You need your promo stuff, you need your engagement stuff and nurture stuff and blah, 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 blah. I think a really important part of that is maintaining kind of these campaign types that we've talked about, some of the more simple ones like the FAQs or the social proof emails that can kind of be recycled or templated in a way that you're, think about a social proof email. Could you pull that slide up in there?
Yeah.
Social proof emails are such a great example of something that it gives you an opportunity to engage and you're always using, you have fresh content constantly because you're just going and taking a review, something that somebody has said about your brand, putting it over an image and then sending that out to everyone else. So you're using your customers' words to describe your product. And this is something that if you're looking for a low friction campaign to send every other week, this can be one of them. Highlighting UGC, highlighting a review that is like this, that isn't all around selling and is more just around, this is how other people are using our products, or this is something that, these are the benefits, reminding them of the benefits of your product without just outright saying, come buy it. And so I think this is a really good way to think about it. You can implement it on all different scales is really what it comes down to at the end of the day. So being aware of bandwidth and how it applies, is very much going to be important because we don't, Ashlyn mentioned Red Bull in the comments here. Not everyone has the resources of Red Bull to go out and sponsor an entire, extreme sports competition or anything like that. What was that? What's the like bike plane thing going off the ramp that Red Bull does? That's probably out of reach, but how do you make what's that?
Soapbox Derby, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, the Soapbox Derby. That's right. Not everyone has the budget to do something like that, but how do you have a couple wins, maybe even just one per month that you really put some effort into, but make sure that you're kind of peppering the calendar with the stuff that's a little bit lower friction.
Yeah. There's probably like 15 or I don't know, maybe like 12 different types in here. Obviously you're going to do promotional campaigns. You're going to do that on Black Friday. You're going to do that whenever you'll do also a big one is the product launch campaign. You'll do that when you launch a new product or launch a new collection or something like that. But what are like a couple other ones that are more middle of funnel or top of funnel? Like pick one or two that you can pepper into your calendar. Get really good at that and then start adding them in as you go. Is probably what I would do if you're struggling with the workflow, like you said, Brian.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a perfect segue into, talking about workflow and just bandwidth issues in general, because, to really do this right, we're talking about outlining your campaign calendar, right? So we're talking about saying, hey, this is everything we want to do for the year. These are the big seasonal pushes that we want to make between sale periods and things like that. But we also want to nurture before then. We want to make sure that we're warming people up to that campaign, the sale season. And I think a lot of brands, especially in-house people are just saying like, we're having trouble keeping up with one campaign a week. Yeah. Like, how am I supposed to get past this and kind of move into a zone where I can even feel like it's possible for me to send 2 or 3 campaigns a week, let alone all of this stuff you're talking about to different segments and, warm-ups and things like that. So yeah, what just, off the cuff, and what are your first kind of thoughts on helping somebody to create a system that actually allows them to send more?
Yeah. So I think that like, probably the first one is identifying what the problem is that's preventing you. And I normally see a couple common problems. The first problem I see is sort of getting buy-in across the company, especially if you're a bigger brand.
Hmm.
You have more
Hmm.
people involved. Sometimes you have leadership involved or managers or different departments involved. It's overlapping with maybe other agencies as well. Like you have a Facebook ads agency or the email agency. And so I that's where I think coming back to that campaign calendar is super key and getting buy-in from other stakeholders,
Totally.
and getting sign off. So that is really, really important. If you're struggling with like getting your boss to sign off on things or getting other people to sign off on things, start with that campaign calendar, make it readily available, share it with people, reference it. People are going to have to see it multiple times, like
Hmm.
pin it in Slack channels. That's where I've seen. I would start there. Like
Yeah.
that's a very
Yeah.
uh, real problem at scale. I see a lot of brands face.
And to take
Um,
that even one step further, I
yeah,
think it also requires explaining to them and honestly marketing to them why it's important.
you have to sell it. Yeah,
Yeah, you have to sell to them. This is why it's important for us to get aligned so early because this is the overall strategy. So you really need to be clear on why you're doing what you're doing instead of just saying, "Hey, I want to put together a campaign calendar or whatever." No, you want to be able to come with data. You need to speak their language. Again, they're one of your customers at the end of the day. You need to kind of think that way of like what's important to them. How do I get them bought in on what we need to do?
yeah,
And then it's going to become a lot easier to actually get them to agree to that.
yeah. And my favorite way to do this, and I tell this to our team all the time, is to justify with the word because.
Hmm.
We need to create a campaign calendar because I want to make sure we get campaigns out on time. And then
Hmm.
if you want to go a step further to speak more to your managers sort of language, hey, I want to create a campaign calendar because I want to make sure we get campaigns out on time and we really increase that we can increase our sales this quarter.
Hmm.
They're gonna be like, oh, I'm totally down for increasing our sales this quarter.
Yeah,
So like they're gonna get bought, they're gonna buy in if you do a good job justifying things.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I cut you off on the next point you're jumping into, so I'll let you keep
Yeah.
going.
I mean, so we talked about like buy-in from the team, campaign calendars. I think I mean, where else do we need to go with it? I mean, we could talk about segmentation. We could talk about that's a problem I see a lot of people have, and another big problem is they don't necessarily have the team to execute these campaigns at scale in a timely manner. Like they don't have like just a designer just sitting there,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you need to build systems that allow you to deploy things quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even before that, it's just like the workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have a designer, but it's just like what you need to do to create a campaign is the same every single time, no
Yeah.
matter what. You have to decide on when it's going out. So that's the campaign calendar planning way before. You have to decide when it's going out, kind of what it's about ish, at least a broad strokes idea. Then you need to decide on an angle. You need to write it. You need to design it. You need to build it in Klaviyo. You need to QA it and you need to schedule it. No matter what, all of those things need to happen. And if you're not following a workflow for that every time, it's a recipe for disaster. There's something is going to break. Something's going to take way longer than you think it's going to. And I think there's a lot of people that are responsible for that entire workflow by themselves.
Yeah.
And you're going to make it way easier on yourself if you have a checklist for it, even if you're doing it. This kind of harkens back to, you and I, when we send emails, we follow the checklist. It's like, sure, we've been doing this for a very, very long time, but like you follow the checklist, even if you've done it forever, because that's how you make sure.
Yeah. I go through our 30-point quality control every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but like it's way better. Like if you do that, I guarantee you, like you're not going to get that nasty email from one of your customer or worse, your boss about why this link is broken or
Yeah.
why this picture's not rendering correctly or this button's broken or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like that's more work because, we're talking about how to be more efficient with sending campaigns, right? How do you send more? It sounds like that's more work, But the reality is at scale, you have to be doing that. And it might take a little bit longer if you're doing it by yourself. But if you start to add people to the team, you're then very clearly able to say you're responsible for steps 2 through 4. Let's say they're a creative, and they'll write and design it for you. It's like you plan it, give them the angle, and then they write and design, and you guys revise it together, and then you do the QA stuff. If you don't have this set workflow and process to go through every time, then you're not going to be able to incorporate other people into the workflow to be able to seamlessly work together. So, at the end of the day, if that's the first thing. If you really want to get efficient, if you really want to start sending at scale, you have to be able to, you have to figure out how to do it the exact same way every single time and figure out what your workflow is going to look like.
Exactly. And like, do we want to get like tactically into how to do that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So before I think there's 2 things to think about. One is an actual checklist that you can make. And I already kind of teased it earlier in this call. I'll represent it one more time. And let me share. Yeah, so there is what I would call like a new campaign checklist. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, there we go.
So it's like, this is a product feature we're doing that's coming out on the 10th of January. And it's like it's the same checklist like Brian was saying. We have to write the copy, we have to design the email, we have to get feedback on it, we have to manage the feedback. Because we're an agency, we got to like share with the client. But I mean, if you're a brand, you're working internally with a brand, you can ignore that. But eventually you have to implement it, like get it developed and coded. Then you have to go through that quality control checklist that I was talking about. Then you kind of have to do a final check, and then you schedule and send. So I would try to come up with your own process. Don't just copy ours, because ours is actually quite granular, because we've been doing this for a while and we have certain systems in place. But I think that start simple, start with some sort of canned template, and then we should probably talk about an email design system, right, Brian? Because that is a way to really get it templated and out the door fast. So we call this an EDS, email design system, here at FlowCandy. I'm just going to show you what it looks like in Figma. And then, sorry, why is this not working? Oh, I got to press this. So what you can do is, and this eventually gets coded into actual Klaviyo, like as a saved blocks, or really any CRM that you're using. But it's sort of like brand guidelines for email, basically. You create, hey, this is how our logos are going to look. This is the fonts we're going to use. This is how our heroes will look on desktop and mobile. This is like what our product features will look like. This is what other sort of like middle of the email, like what like sort of featurettes could look like. I think we even have like social proof down here. So you think about all the blocks you have in an email, and you just template them ahead of time. And so that when you do a new campaign, you're mostly just writing copy, you're dragging blocks in, you're maybe doing a little bit of changing some stuff here and there, but you're not needing to bring in like these super technical designers and developers every single time you send an email. So therefore you're like really shrinking the workflow, and you can get it deployed a lot faster.
No, I mean, I think we know how much of a game changer this was for us. It took a long time to get implemented. I think we, obviously is different for us as well, because we're trying to do it across multiple brands at one time.
Yeah.
But, I would say this fundamentally shifted FlowCandy and our ability to get emails out faster. And then on top of that, just aligning with, we've been talking about leadership. aligning with everyone on brand guidelines and saying like, hey, these are pre-approved email blocks that we can use. So you're moving faster on the actual content rather than worrying about, oh, is somebody going to say like they don't like the, the border radius on this picture or something like that. That's, you get all of those little nitpicky things out of the way.
Yeah, I don't like
really
the button.
starts to
Like we already signed off on the button. Okay, like
Yeah.
this is our button style. Yeah.
If you want to redo the EDS, like we can talk about that and set that as an objective, but like this is the current EDS, and so I think that that's really important because it starts to level the playing field for everyone and just like, hey, this is what we're doing and this is how it's going to go, and it really gets the team aligned a lot faster. So it is a little bit of upfront investment in getting it done. But we'll share our playbook with you on it today, that kind of walks through how you could start thinking about implementing something like that on your brand, and that will get you moving in the right spot. There's a couple more things I want to cover on the on like this topic of kind of volume and bandwidth and how to tackle it. But I did just want to drop a mention here that if anybody has any questions, I think we'll have a few minutes after we go through the rest of this to answer any questions. So if anyone wants to talk about something specific, please drop a comment and we'll address it as we get through there. But one other thing I wanted to mention, and we talked about this at the very beginning with the campaign calendar planning, is getting ahead. This is the other way that you tackle really addressing volume, is getting as far ahead as possible. We talked about that at Flow Candy. We like to work at least a month ahead, knowing that, hey, all of this month is already done, signed off on and approved. So, really figuring out a way to say, hey, this is what the next 90 days looks like, getting that approved with your team and your leadership, and starting to, it's hard at first when you're trying to get ahead in that first month, because you're trying to do 2 months worth of campaigns in 1 month. But it then starts to pay off because you're able to really not rush through other things and have the space to do the what would you call them? Well, we used to have a name for it, the last minute kind of stuff, because there's always going to be, oh, we want to do a resend of this, or oh, we want to send, this thing happened and we want to send out an email for it, or this came back in stock early, or this, and so you have these kind of last minute sends that you don't have space for because you're trying to keep up with the campaign calendar. Now, all of a sudden, you're able to react to those kind of things because you're planned further in advance. You actually have all the stuff kind of in the hopper ready to go, so you can move stuff around if you need to kind of give yourself the breathing room.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think that one thing about campaigns is it can kind of create anxiety. It can create some anxiety for marketing teams because there's a deadline, and so there's a lot of last minute changes or like tweaks and stuff like that. Stuff that you don't have to necessarily deal with if you're doing flows or doing media buying or blog post SEO type of stuff. But it's the deadline that this needs to get out today that's on this calendar that can create anxiety for, like I've said, I've seen this happen across the board for a lot of brands, a lot of agencies. And I think by putting these systems in place, it like what Brian said, it reduces from having to talk about buttons and heroes and fonts and photography and all that sort of stuff. And it's just down to these little minute details that are just going to happen at the end of the day for every brand. Stuff going out of stock, lifestyle photos changing and stuff like that. But you're not having these hard resets of the entire campaign an hour before it sends because you didn't share the campaign calendar to your manager and he didn't know this was coming and he hasn't approved of the EDS. So it's like these systems prevent a lot of these sort of common mishaps we've seen happen over and over and over.
Totally. Yeah. One other thing that I'll add in there as well, we're kind of talking about being able to pivot quickly, because that's the reality, is that's never going away. Just accept that now, that it's never going away. My suggestion to be able to deal with that is to have things in your back pocket that you can get out in an hour. It is very possible to have a template that is just your emergency go-to template. This is the one that we use when we need to just get a plain text email out that, is going to be low friction and easy to do. One brand that I saw that does this really, really well is Jot, the coffee brand. And it's something that they do. I think they're sending one every week, if not every 2 weeks, but it's like it's just a plain text email from their CEO. It might be about one of their new flavors or something like that, but it's the exact same template every time and the content just changes. It also helps with deliverability because you're sending a hopefully high engaged, high inbox placement email, with that plain text stuff. So you're getting that little boost every time. And so just developing something that will help you get more emails out in this process, because if you're strategic about it and I'm not just saying go and blast your entire list every day when I say the next thing I'm about to say, but if you're strategic about sending more emails is going to make you more money a lot of the time. But it's just about being able to scale that volume with bandwidth and being able to scale that volume around deliverability and being smart about who you're actually sending to. But yeah, so to kind of recap, I think the biggest stuff for scaling the volume of campaigns you can send is, improving your workflow, really understanding and knowing where the bottleneck is there and why, if it is breaking down and taking you 2 weeks to get a campaign out the door, what is it? Who is it? Is it leadership that's coming in and saying, oh no, at the very end? Or is it, the design is taking too long because they don't have an EDS system to work with or something like that? I think it's really deciding on working ahead and putting in that extra time now to kind of get ahead and make your life, future you will thank you. And then again, it's the systems around design, as we kind of already said, making sure you have pre-approved blocks, pre-approved layouts and templates that you're able to use on a regular basis that give you the freedom to just focus on the content and focus on hitting volume. And then you can start to incorporate other people. If you might already have a team, but it gives you the opportunity to really get aligned with the team on, hey, these are all the pieces we need, and this is what we're going to send every time. So cool. Well, that's pretty much everything we have for you today. We do have all of the resources that we kind of reviewed with you today. We have a playbook on an EDS. We have a playbook for the campaign types that we'll show you there. And then we also have a template for the campaign calendar if you want to take a look at that. I put it up on the screen. Actually, give me just a second. I will drop it in the comments as well if anyone wants to go and grab these resources. Any closing words, Will?
No, let us know if you have any, or let me know if you have any questions where you get stuck. You can just email me, will@flowcandy.com, or DM me on LinkedIn. Pretty active there. But some of this stuff is hard. It's not stuff that you can just do overnight. And yeah, we have a lot of, scars or history of building these things out and getting these things deployed and getting these systems installed. So yeah, let me know wherever you get stuck. It's common to get stuck with this stuff, especially if you're working in larger teams, larger organizations. And I'm always there to help.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool, everyone. Well, thanks, y'all. As Will said, reach out to us directly. We're happy to help with anything if you have any questions. And this is the first of hopefully many. So we'll be back with some more, strategy school that we can help you with. And so we'll see you next time. Cheers, everyone.